The mood around Dallas shifted the moment that win over Philadelphia went final. Because no matter how slim the path looks on paper, the Dallas Cowboys suddenly breathed life back into a season that felt like it was slipping away. Nobody in the locker room is pretending it will be easy, but that victory reminded everyone that the margin between hope and despair in the National Football League can flip in the span of a single afternoon. Before that game, the idea of fighting back from a record with 4 defeats and a tie, staring up at the rest of the conference, felt more like a wish than a plan. After it, the conversation changed. The door is cracked open, even if it is only a sliver, and the Cowboys are trying to kick it wide. When you glance at the current playoff picture, it becomes obvious just how crowded the race in the National Football Conference truly is. The Cowboys sit outside looking in, trailing a long line of teams that have stacked early season wins. Los Angeles built a strong cushion. Philadelphia and Chicago are hanging near the top. Tampa Bay managed to stay in a mix. Seattle continues lurking. Green Bay has been tougher than many expected. San Francisco is still finding its rhythm, even with inconsistent stretches, and has a bye week coming at just the right time for them. Add in Detroit and Carolina, who are both trying to keep their own hopes alive, and you can see why the Cowboys are stuck trying to thread the needle. They need victories, and they need help, and they need that help to come from a dozen different directions. There's an argument floating around that maybe, just maybe, the clearest route to January goes through the division itself. That sounds wild considering how far ahead Philadelphia sits at the moment. But with 6 games still on the schedule and a clash coming up that could tilt their confidence in either direction, nothing is fully settled. If Philadelphia stumbles this week, the conversation changes again. One slip turns into doubt. Doubt turns into pressure, and pressure can make a season unravel faster than anyone expects. The problem is simple. The Cowboys are still chasing from behind, and there's no room for a single misstep. Different playoff models paint different pictures of the Cowboys' chances. Some simulations look only at the remaining schedule and ignore betting lines or probabilities of individual matchups. Others factor all that in. Depending on which model you trust, you get 2 very different outlooks. One system has the Cowboys hovering around a 9% chance to sneak in. Another bumps them closer to 14%. Neither number is comforting, but both reflect a reality where the Cowboys still control a portion of their fate. Win enough, and the season stays alive. Lose even one game, too many, and everything collapses. With 6 games left on the calendar, the scenario is brutally straightforward. If the Cowboys run the table and win every remaining contest, the playoff probability skyrockets into the near certainty range. But asking for 6 more wins on top of the 2 they just stacked is asking a lot from any team in this league. Thanksgiving brings Kansas City, a heavyweight in the other conference that has the kind of explosive offense you can never take lightly. A few nights later comes Detroit in prime time, a team that matches up in dangerous ways. Then Minnesota under the Sunday night lights, always a tricky trip. After that, Los Angeles, a team that can be streaky but dangerous when its offense gets rolling. Washington on Christmas Day, a rivalry game where anything can happen. And finally the Giants, another matchup where records never fully predict the outcome. Realistically, nobody expects an 8-game winning streak to close the season. That is why analysts point to one single truth. Dallas can afford 1 loss. 1. Anything more and the math gets ugly. If they drop a second game, they finish the year in the same position they are in now, relying on chaos across the conference. They would need teams ahead of them to collapse in perfect synchronicity. They would need bizarre tiebreaker scenarios. They would need outcomes that almost never go their way. The one game they could lose without torpedoing their season is the Kansas City matchup. It is an out-of-conference game, so it does not affect the tiebreakers as heavily as dropping one to Detroit or Minnesota. In fact, simulations suggest that losing only that contest while winning the remaining 5 still gives the Cowboys roughly a 3/4 chance to reach the postseason. The reason is simple. Beating Detroit matters far more. Falling to the Lions gives Detroit the head-to-head edge, pushes them further ahead, and essentially slams the door on catching them. Minnesota would have been another crucial matchup, but their recent skid has taken some of their pressure off the Cowboys' path, even though they remain a threat. The Chargers game plays out similarly to the Kansas City one because it also comes from the opposing conference. Tiebreakers do not shift the same way when teams are not competing for the same wildcard positions. Washington, while struggling, still represents a divisional matchup that could become dangerous if taken lightly. The Giants have had a turbulent year, but dropping that game would signal deeper issues that likely end the playoff dream altogether. With so many moving parts, Cowboys fans are stuck in the strange position of scoreboard watching every week. The wild card route appears easier on paper, simply because the Eagles would need to completely collapse for the division to be realistic. Philadelphia has been wobbling, but not enough yet to say their season is in free fall. If Chicago pulls off a surprise win this weekend, though, the ripple effect could be significant. Philadelphia would be forced into a stretch of games where every mistake becomes magnified. The Chargers, Raiders, and Washington matchups could tilt either direction depending on how Philadelphia responds emotionally. If they drop one or two more unexpectedly, suddenly the division looks less like a dream and more like a possibility. But the Cowboys cannot plan around a collapse they cannot control. Focusing on the wild card means paying attention to the entire National Football Conference, and that is where things get messy. Seattle and Los Angeles are already in strong position. It is hard to imagine either collapsing hard enough for Dallas to leapfrog them. The North is chaotic. Detroit has talent, but inconsistency. Chicago has wins, but a brutal remaining schedule. Green Bay's path is filled with teams that swing wildly week to week. San Francisco, despite their flaws, has one of the easier schedules left. If they take care of business against Cleveland and Tennessee, they will be in double-digit wins before the Cowboys even reach the final stretch. That forces Dallas into a position where they must outpace 3 or 4 teams just to reach the 7th seed. And then there is the South, where the records may not be strong, but the matchups are soft. Carolina and Tampa Bay both have schedules that could allow them to stack wins quickly. The conference standings could suddenly feature one of them with 8 or 9 victories, creating yet another obstacle the Cowboys do not need. It becomes a domino chain where Dallas needs the North to beat itself up, the West to maintain its current hierarchy, and the South to avoid producing multiple surprise contenders. As the Cowboys look ahead, the reality is clear. There is no room for error. Every possession matters, every defensive stop carries weight, and every touchdown could shift the trajectory of their entire season. The schedule does not give them a second chance. Thanksgiving against Kansas City is more than a holiday game. It is a statement opportunity, but also a trap. Chiefs' quarterback play is precise. Their offense can strike quickly, and Dallas cannot afford slow starts. The Cowboys need to come out sharp, methodical, and unrelenting. The entire flow of the next 6 weeks revolves around that level of focus. A lapse, even for a single quarter, could have repercussions that stretch all the way to January. Detroit follows, a team that has proven it can be inconsistent but also dangerous. They're not a pushover. Prime time brings added pressure, and with the eyes of the league watching, mistakes are magnified. The Cowboys have to execute on both sides of the ball with surgical precision. Defensively, they must contain the Lions' rushing attack and disrupt the quarterback's rhythm. Offensively, every drive counts, especially in a season where points can make or break tiebreaker scenarios. This is why the importance of each game cannot be overstated. It is not just about wins, but about building momentum and proving to the rest of the league that Dallas remains a team to fear. Minnesota is next, another high-stakes matchup. The Vikings have shown resilience in the past, and their home environment creates an extra layer of challenge. Traveling on the road is never easy, particularly against a team that knows it must perform under pressure. The Cowboys will need a combination of strategic play calling, disciplined execution, and maybe a little luck. The margin for error is non-existent, and every misstep could reverberate across the playoff projections. Analysts have pored over simulations, but in reality, there's only one constant. Dallas has to win. Every single game matters equally, and even the smallest setback could compound the difficulties of their postseason push. Then comes Los Angeles, a team that has been streaky throughout the season. On paper, it may look manageable, but the Rams are always capable of exploiting weaknesses. Defensive lapses could allow explosive plays, and any hint of overconfidence could be costly. Dallas needs to be prepared for the unexpected, because at this point in the season, anything less than total focus is a risk. These matchups are tests of consistency, and consistency is exactly what the Cowboys need. It is not just about individual talent. It is about executing as a cohesive unit when the stakes are at their highest. Washington represents a divisional test that carries its own weight. Holiday games tend to carry an emotional charge, and these contests often defy expectations. The Cowboys will need to balance intensity with composure, and every decision made on the field will have an amplified effect on the standings. Christmas Day brings traditions, but for Dallas, it is a continuation of a high-pressure gauntlet. They cannot afford to look past any opponent. They cannot afford to underestimate the challenges, even if Washington is struggling. The stakes are too high for casual play. Each matchup demands attention to detail, a readiness to adapt mid-game, and a relentless pursuit of every point and every stop. The season culminates against the Giants, a team that has had its own inconsistencies but is always capable of surprises. Final games often produce unexpected outcomes, and the Cowboys cannot assume a win will come easily. They must approach this as if it were a playoff contest, because in reality, the outcome will directly influence whether their season extends into January. Strategy, execution, mental toughness, and resilience will be under constant scrutiny. Players and coaches alike know that the difference between making the postseason and falling short could hinge on a single play in these final weeks. Behind the scenes, the simulations continue to shift. The models may differ, some showing slightly higher chances, others slightly lower, but they all reflect the same truth. Dallas is alive, but survival requires perfection and favorable outcomes across the league. They need Eagles' missteps, Bears' errors, and minimal disruption from the North and South divisions. Even if they perform flawlessly, their fate will likely still depend on the outcomes of other teams. That is the tension that makes this stretch of the season so fascinating. Every yard, every interception, every conversion carries consequences beyond the scoreboard. Dallas fans understand this. The energy around the team is electric because hope, even small, fuels belief. As the Cowboys prepare mentally for this push, they must maintain focus despite distractions. The narrative around playoff chances, probabilities, and simulations can be compelling, but ultimately, execution on the field determines reality. The offense must remain versatile, balancing run and pass attacks to keep defenses off balance. The quarterback's decision-making will be crucial, but so will the protection schemes and route adjustments. Receivers have to capitalize on every opportunity, and running backs must gain consistent yardage to control the tempo. Meanwhile, the defense has to limit big plays, win key third downs, and force turnovers to keep the pressure on opponents. Every unit contributes to the overall goal, survival in the postseason race. Game planning now becomes a meticulous science. Coaches study tendencies, analyze weaknesses, and prepare contingencies for every possible scenario. Adjustments will need to be made on the fly, because no two opponents present identical challenges. The Cowboys' ability to adapt under pressure could define their entire campaign. Leadership in the locker room, communication on the field, and mental resilience all play as much a role as physical talent. These next 6 games are a crucible. Mistakes are magnified, successes are amplified, and the team's character is fully tested. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. The buzz sweeping across the league offices and echoing through the walls of the Star is no longer a faint whisper. It is a deafening roar. Unconfirmed, yet widely speculated details suggest that the Dallas Cowboys have secured a truly seismic addition to their defensive front, inking Chris Jones to what sources are calling a truly giant signing. The sheer magnitude of the contract, rumored to shatter multiple defensive tackle market records, sends an unmistakable signal to the rest of the NFL. The Cowboys are not just competing. They're aggressively declaring their intention for immediate, overwhelming supremacy. This isn't just a free agent acquisition. It's a defensive centerpiece, the linchpin around which a Super Bowl-caliber unit is instantly forged. Jones' arrival in Dallas is being described as nothing short of a franchise-altering move. He is immediately slotted in as the undisputed leader of the defensive line, a veteran presence with a track record of singular dominance capable of commanding double teams and disrupting any offensive scheme. The most terrifying thought for opposing coordinators is the prospect of pairing Jones on the interior with the already historic pressure generated by Micah Parsons off the edge. This alignment creates a defensive front that transitions from formidable to utterly nightmarish. Parsons, who has had to contend with offenses skewing protection schemes solely to neutralize him, will now find the passing lane shortened and the quarterback's escape routes completely choked off by Jones' relentless interior surge. The synergy between the two could very well unlock a new, unprecedented level of chaos in a backfield. The sheer audacity of the front office to commit such a significant mountain of money, a move uncharacteristic of their traditional salary cap approach, speaks volumes about the belief in the team's current championship window. Questions inevitably swirl about the cap space maneuvering and the structural cost of this colossal commitment. But for the moment, those concerns are drowned out by the excitement of what Jones promises to deliver on the turf. This isn't just about Jones' individual stat line. It's about the elevation of everyone around him. The defensive ends, including DeMarcus Lawrence, should benefit from lighter blocking assignments, and the linebackers will find cleaner paths to the ball carrier when gaps are consistently plugged by the new Leviathan in the middle. The immediate reaction from rival clubs is one of collective dread. Jones is the rare, generational talent who can fundamentally alter an entire defensive scheme, and now he is deployed on a roster already stacked with Pro Bowl talent. This move transcends standard transactional gossip. It's an inflection point for the entire conference. The expectations surrounding this team have instantaneously rocketed from high to absolutely astronomical. Anything less than a deep, meaningful run into the postseason will be viewed as a colossal failure, given the unprecedented financial and personnel investment in securing one of the league's most dominant players. The stage is set, the massive contract is signed, and the entire weight of the defense now rests squarely on the shoulders of the newest, highest-paid leader in Dallas. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.